Yes. Ashe. Ashe is the word. The source of I and I ancestors. Ashe is the source that holds all things together. Ashe is I source, I shield, and I protector. Ashe is I source, I guide, and I provider. Ashe is I source, and that is why I am not black. Ashe is I source, and I cannot be lack. Ashe is I source, I light, and I deliver. Ashe is I source, I healer, and I teacher. Ashe is I source, I leader, and I spiritual fire. Ashe is I source, I strength, each day I be more and more. Ashe is I source, I spiritual comforter, each day I be more stronger. Ashe is I source, I sustainer, each day my life is filled with more pleasure. Ashe walk with I daily to much green and greener pastures. Ashe walk with I beside some very cold and deadly waters. Ashe walk I through the valley of blackness and under the shadow of blackness. And so I fear no evil or what the devils may try to do. For it's Ashe, I say. Ashe, 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 I say to you all, my highly enriched melanin, my highly enriched carbon skin brothers and sisters, my fellow Africans, Mother Earth's original, Mother Earth's natural, native, and organic humans, the world over. And welcome back, one and all, to this another perspective with I, the Mystic Philosopher. It's high time for reason and for reasoning. As it is customary to do, or as it is my custom to do, please let me take this opportunity right here and now and say goodwill to all those of you that have given, and all those of you that may give, and all those of you that will give of your very limited resources. Your very limited resources, also known as your precious time, just to join in, to watch and to listen this video broadcast and podcast. Goodwill to all those of you that take time out to subscribe to my YouTube channel called The Right Number, and to my blog post at themysticp.com. Goodwill to all those of you that may or will take time out to donate and to support what I'm doing, and especially goodwill to all those of you that have and that may and that will purchase my music and messages in songs. Goodwill to all those of you that may or those that will take time out to participate in the discussions, to critique and to write comments. Goodwill to all those of you that may or that will intelligently, informatively, and respectfully rebut with the honest intent of highlighting or correcting any and all possible statements or information that you might perceive to be erroneous and misleading, or that you can or that you may prove to be incorrect and misleading. And goodwill to all those of you that will share your own perspectives on many of the topics that are covered in this or any series of lecture presentations by I, the Mystic Philosopher. Welcome, thank you, and goodwill to you all. The topic of this series of lecture presentations is the art of living well, another perspective and interpretation of Desiderata, part 2A, and this is part 2A. Now, just for your information, this lecture today is titled The Art of Living Well, another perspective and interpretation of Desiderata, part 2A. Now, if you haven't yet watched or listened to part 1 followed by part 1A and part 2 in that sequential order, I strongly suggest that you please do so before you continue watching or listening to this part 2A or any other parts of this series that you may come across if you haven't been following this series. Now, at the end of part 2, for those of you who watched part 1 and part 1A, at the end of part 2, I ask that you please join me in part 3 for the continuation and for much more detailed expressions on this topic, the art of living well, another perspective and interpretation of Desiderata, which I had already prepared. However, someone asked a question and also made a commentary about one of my basic life's philosophy, and a statement that I made in one of my messages in song on life, which incidentally is a question and commentary that I have been asked multiple times before. Sometimes I have been asked this question by some people sarcastically, just to try and make fun of me or to make me out to be a fake, as if I am pretentious, as if I don't really mean what I am saying when I say it, the statement. While some people ask the question just out of curiosity, and others genuinely ask the question just to try and get a good understanding, an understanding and overstanding of what I am saying and my intentions, and what are my intentions for saying it. And while trying to do a quick response video, the juice started flowing and I was given a whole lecture, which I now labeled The Art of Living Well, Another Perspective and Interpretation of Desiderata, part 2A. So instead of going into part 3, which I have already prepared, I'm now doing part 2A. And the question and commentary that inspired this part 2A is as follows. Mystic Philosopher, what do you mean by life is good and life is great? With all the evils that are happening in the world today, the injustices that are being meted out to us melanin people, aka African people, and the native people of the earth, or peoples of the earth, that you yourself sometimes speak so passionately about, how can you honestly sing and honestly say that life is good and life is great? Aren't you being very hypocritical like all the rest? Unquote. Well, first, when the Mystic Philosopher, say that life is good, life is great, I am speaking about my own life. In other words, I am testifying about my own life. When I say life is good and life is great, I am speaking from my own perspective. When I say life is good and life is great, I'm speaking from my angle of observation. When I say life is good and life is great, I'm speaking from my point of view. When I say life is good and life is great, I'm speaking from the way that I see, feel, and think. That I know, understand, understand, and overstand things. Yes, when I say life is good and life is great, I'm speaking from my own practical experiences, my own evaluation and analysis, and my own judgment and conclusion. In other words, I am not seeing this thing called life through yours or other people's lenses, aka other people's perspectives. And nor am I speaking through other people's voices and their testimonies, but through that of my own. When I say life is good and life is great, I do not, and nor am I saying that life is good and life is great to you or for you. But what I am saying and saying about, or what I'm singing and singing about, is that from my perspective, and all the aforementioned, when all things are considered, or at the very least, when the things that truly matters the most are considered, I think my life is good and my life is great. And I also think that if a lot of other people were to examine and evaluate their lives, they using the formulas and methods that I use or that I have used, they too might discover that when all things are considered, or when the things that matters the most are considered, their lives are also good and great. Now, let's look at, dissect, and analyze the truthics of this one of my songs from the album of the same name, Life is Good. And I said truthics because I, the Mystic Philosopher, don't write lyrics. I deal with truth. Thus, truthics. I'm not an entertainer. I'm a philosopher. So I'm into truth or truthics. And so let us look at my statement in this one of my songs. And hopefully you too will see, know, and understand what I am singing and talking about. And hopefully you will see, know, and understand why I have concluded that my life is good and my life is great. And possibly, by the end of this journey, through this presentation and this analysis, this evaluation, you too might even end up singing the chorus of this one of my many songs about this thing called life. And the chorus goes like this: life is good, life is great, life is a gift from the source that we should all learn to appreciate much, much more now. Now, for those of you that may have listened to any of my lecture presentations, and especially my most recent series of lectures titled The Art of Living Well, Another Perspective, the Mystic Philosopher, Another Perspective on Desiderata by I, the Mystic Philosopher, you will no doubt remember me saying that one of my favorite quotes is from the ancient Greek philosopher named Socrates. And I'll quote. He said, and I quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living," unquote. From my perspective, another word that best describes this thing called life, or another word that is synonymous with this thing called life, is the word time. Time, from my perspective, time is equal to life, and life is equal to time. That's an equation. Time equal life, like life equal time. So for the purpose of this commentary, or for the purpose of this lecture presentation, whenever you hear me use the word life, I ask that you also think of time. And also for the purpose of, and also from my perspective, living is synonymous with spending time and expending time. Another very important fact that we will discover upon careful examination of our life is that unlike our bank account or bank accounts, our life's account is one from which we can only make withdrawal, and definitely not one that we can deposit, save, or make interest, or accumulate interest, or rather save, invest, or accumulate interest, or more time. We can only withdraw from our life's account. Therefore, in order for us to live a meaningful, a fulfilled, a worthwhile, and a worthful life, aka a life of worth, then we must, or we should be examining our lives daily, if not moment by moment. We must, or we should be taking inventory of our lives daily in order to give an account of how we are managing or mismanaging, of how we are using or misusing our lives daily. We must, or we should be examining our lives daily to see if we are making the best use of it or if we are wasting it. If we are making the best use of our time or if we are wasting our time. We must, or we should be examining our lives daily to see if we know how, if or how we can make the best of the next period, also known as the next cycle, the next moment, the next day. Should we be afforded another cycle or another day to live, because we don't know what comes, really don't know what comes next. We must, or we should be examining our lives to see what is in our life's bank account and potentially how much life or how much time, if any, that we may have left. For the evidence will show, and the evidence has shown, that if or when we mismanage our life's account, it will not, and it does not end well for us. And sometimes I prefer to say life's account. In fact, I think I should just say life's, or we should say life's account instead of life's bank account. Because when you bank something, you know it's there. It's not, it can either grow interest or become more. It's like planting a seed, it can reproduce, but when it comes to life's account, only withdrawal. I'm withdrawing right now. Even though I would like to, put a stop order. I would like to put a stop on the withdrawal, but I can't help it. It's just going and going. Anyway, by this I mean that we will have more regrets than satisfaction if we are not examining how our account is being depleted, how we are managing and spending time. We'll have more regrets than satisfaction. We will have more sadness than happiness. More if I could, we will have more if I could, I would, I should, than to say the words like that of Frank Sinatra. Yes, I did it my way. And that is also one of the reasons why so many people, many of us, when we come to the end of our rainbow, aka the end of our days, we become frightened. We become scared of the inevitable transition called death. We become fearful. We don't want to surrender, let alone to surrender gracefully. Some of us become very bitter at ourselves, bitter at our spouses, bitter at our parents. Some of us become very bitter at our children, bitter at young people and all those around us, because, of course, of us not examining our lives and mismanaging our time, our life's account. And why again? It is because they discovered, or we discovered at the end of our days, that we have mismanaged and have wasted our lives. We have wasted our time. We have discovered that we never really take time to live. Now, according to the Adamic race history and holy book, also known as the Christian Holy Bible, and I quote, "The days of our years are 70, or rather 70 years and 10. And if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away." Unquote. That is in the book called Psalm 90 and verse 10, King James Version. Now, years ago, and that was written, if my memory is right, is according to some scholars, historian, etc. That is over 3,500 years ago, since it's alleged that those scriptures were recorded in writing or recorded. So over 3,000 years ago, the ancients had discovered that man, or we would live something like 70. So it's a long time this has been figured out. It's nothing new, really. Anyhow, if this is correct, then we can logically deduce and conclude that anything beyond 70 years is that which we may call a grace period, or for the lack, and that is for the lack of a better word at this time. Any year until you start living beyond 70 years, if this is correct, and I just happen to think it is, not because it is written in the Adamic race history and holy book, but the evidence shows. Because you notice everybody hasn't reached age and start drop out. Anyway. Now, if this is correct, then we can and we must logically deduce and conclude that if we make it past 70 years of age, then we must expect labor And please note very carefully, not expect labor meaning that we are going to re-enter the workforce or the job market, but labor meaning hard life, labor meaning hardship, labor meaning difficulty living and doing things, labor meaning difficulty walking, labor meaning difficulty eating, you name it. And I, the Mystic Philosopher, say if we make it past 70 or 70 years of age, we must expect difficulty doing it. And that is why again I quote Socrates, an unexamined life is not worth living. When we truly examine our lives, we'll see not only is it a possibility, but it is also in most cases a reality. Let's continue. And what is meant by sorrow being spoken of here in this scripture? I am sure some of you will no doubt be asking, what is meant by sorrow? It means that if we make it past 70 years of age, we must expect to experience feelings of deep distress and loss. Distress and loss caused by the loss of our loved ones, loss of our spouse, loss of our friends, loss of our companions. We must expect sorrow of being confined and left alone in our home, where we must patiently wait, if not torturously wait, to expire. These are the reality. You name it. And I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to drive more fear in anybody. But that's a reality. An examined life is what is coming. Yes. And I'm on my journey there. That's a reality. Right? Because I examine my life, it won't be any surprise. I mean, especially these times with these picking where we have. We think we have children. It's not like back in the old days when we could say we are depending on our kids to back us up and think. These kids are planning ahead of time. Find the cheapest nursing home to park us. That's a reality. But an examined life, and an examined life is not worth living. So now we know, how we move on from here on. And again, I'll quote, because I'm not making this thing up. Right? The purpose of the Mystic Philosopher, the Mystic Philosopher, is to share with you another perspective. And sometimes a realistic perspective, something we might not want to think about or be scared of thinking about. But it's a reality. And when we know, knowledge can be dangerous, it's potentially powerful, or it can, if you know how to utilize it, then it can benefit us. Anyway, let me quote the scripture again. And again I quote, "The days of our years are 70 years and 10. And if by reason of strength," meaning, let's say for example, we take good care of ourselves and merit a favor reach us, we can interpret that however, but by reason of strength, there be 80, which is 80 years, yet in their strength, labor. Explain what that was a while ago. And sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. In other words, the philosopher called King Solomon also said, very important quote, "Regardless of how long we live, we will be dead much longer." Food for thought. For example, let us assume that we are going to live to the age of 70, which is 10 years. 10 years, which is equal to 25,550 days. Another way of saying this is that at the moment of our birth, 70 years, which is equal to 839.999 months, or round it off at 840 months, which is also equal to 3,650 weeks, which is also equal to 25,550 days, which is also equal to 613,200 hours, which is also equal to 36,792,000 minutes, which is also equal to 2,207,520,000 seconds were deposited to our life's account at the day of our birth, when we took our first breath. And if it is true that every second of our life really counts, and that is something we take for granted most of the time, you know. Second, oh, just a few seconds. Oh, I'll be there in a few seconds. Oh, man, just give me a few seconds. But every second counts. I just showed to you that the numbers don't lie. They add up. I took the time to check this out. Right? And you can check it for yourself on the internet. Just find out, you know, it's not like back in the day I have to do a lot of mathematics. These calculations incorporate leap year and all these different type of stuff in it. They do everything for me. So all I do is just research it and present it. There's nothing big. I'm not that. It's not that I'm showing off my skills in mathematics, which is of course one of my favorite subjects. Right? So if it is true that every second of our life really counts, and thus it should, or thus it must be accounted for, then that means that the moment we took our first breath at birth, the clock starts ticking and our time starts to run out. Some say the minute you're born, you start dying. You're dying. So in reality, you could say you're not really living, you're dying. Right? In fact, as I am speaking to you right now, my clock is ticking fast too. And my time, aka my time, is running out. I'm aware of that. That's why life is good. I've got a full joy every moment of it. Right? Anyway, let me not stay. So I prepare my material, you know, because I tend to get more inspiration as I go on, and it's speaking to me. Another way of saying it is that every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year that passes by is one that is taken away from my allotted number. Or in this case, assuming I'm going to make it to 70, since I'm talking to you, presenting this presentation, which is according to the clock now, is what? Around 30 minutes and 40 something seconds has taken away, and I'm that way getting closer to 70, closer to the my expiry date. Assuming I'm going to make it that far. I don't know. So by the time we are 35 years of age, we would have already depleted our life's account by 1/2. We are halfway to the finish line. Meaning, let me give you the number again. Meaning, 12,775 days would have been depleted. 12,775 days would have been withdrawn or spent or lived. Or another way of saying this is that 35 years, which is equal to 419.9995 or 420 months, which is also months, 420 months is also equal to 1,825 weeks, which is equal to 12,775 days, which is also equal to 306,600 hours, which is also equal to 18,396,000 minutes, which is also equal to 1,103,760,000 seconds were debited, past tense, or withdrawn or spent from our life's account. Always amazes me to see how some people behave as if they have a whole heap left. Right? Anyway, I'll get back to that. Or another way of saying it is that half of our life is over. Half of our life is done. Half of our life on this physical plane, if we're gonna make it to 70 and we touch 35, half is done, half is gone, forever gone, and no more to come back. At 35, can you imagine me? Past that, almost double it. Now, retirement. Let's talk about this thing called retirement just for a brief moment. From my perspective, this thing called retirement is not only grossly exaggerated, but it is one that most people never really and truly seriously thought about. Consequently, they are grossly ignorant of what it really and truly is. Most people plan to live and enjoy their life after they retire, not really knowing what retirement really and truly is. Well, I, the Mystic Philosopher, gonna share my perspective, and of course I said we can agree to disagree, and please feel free to correct me, because I'm learning. From my perspective, this thing called retirement is when the system, which is all about slavery and production as a result of slavery, that is what the system is all about. It is when the slave masters and the slavery system have no more use for us after they have tricked us and robbed us of our youth and the best years, robbed us of the best years of our lives. After they have enslaved us, labor us, and work us out until they, the system and the slave masters, determine that we are no more productive to them. The system, aka, from the system you say, is known as non-productive. When we are no more of use to them, they say we are non-productive. Then they just treat us like any other animal, or like their farm animals, or like farm animals, like a farm horse, a farm donkey, or any other non-productive slave animal. What they do? Retirement means that the system put us out to pasture, where all we can now do is wait. Sometimes anxiously, sometimes patiently. But it doesn't matter anxious or patient. We are waiting to permanently expire. And as they sometimes mercilessly, if not violently, put us out to pasture. Because as some of you guys may be listening, you know people who work at a company for 20, 30, 40, 10, 15, 20, 30, and how many years. And the system just put them out to pasture violently. Put them out to pasture. Right? So sometimes mercilessly, if not violently, put us out to pasture, where we must now go sometimes suffer and die. Right? While they gleefully replace us with someone younger. They gleefully replace us with a new slave that is younger. With a new slave that sometimes is 1/3 years younger. 1/3 of our lives. 1/3 of our years, and oftentimes with no experience, but then again they will train the new slave. It's like a new donkey. The old donkey dead, so then just get a new one and train it. In fact, most people I know die on the job. Personally, I know, and so many people I personally know, I mean, they might die at work or on the work desk or in the factory machine or stuff. But they were fully employed with all the promised benefits that the company promised them. And they dropped dead. Or they took sick and died. So it's still, to me, they still die on the job. Right? Which is also another word for that is, for the job from my perspective, they die on the slave plantation. They never make it to the pasture. They didn't make it there. This is the real world I'm talking about. Now I know that a lot of people will take offense. And in the past, because when I speak like this to people sometimes, they have taken offense to the word slave and to these sort of description that I'm giving. Slavery. I guess maybe because I'm heading towards the expiry date. I don't give a damn. I'm telling the family the truth right now. I say it as I see it. Yeah. Now, so no, some people have taken offense to the word slave, slavery, and to me calling them slave. But the fact is that from my perspective, we are all slaves. And we are all working for the same slave masters. These I cover in all the details in other lectures. But we are all slaves. And just for your information, the word slave simply means servant. A slave is a servant and a servant is a slave. Therefore, it does not matter if you are classified by the system as a public slave or a public servant or as a civil servant or as a private sector servant or a rebellious servant, you name it. The fact is that we are all servants, aka we are all slaves. So next time we drive in our fancy cars and with our dress up like the slave master, the bigger master with a tie around our neck like we want to hang ourselves, and skinning up our face when we see other people at the bus stop or other people going to work in their iron shoes while you have on, with their steel shoes, while you have on your quote-unquote suits. We are slaves. We are working for the slave master. Some of them, we are all slaves. Whether you're a public servant, civil servant, you name it. We are all slaves. And I challenge any one of you watching this who think you're not a slave of the system to prove me wrong. I will admit, I will accept if you can. I wish you could prove me wrong. I try to prove myself wrong on this. We are all slaves. So stop being too cocky. We are all slaves. And we are rewarded by our slave masters based upon our works. Anyway, that's another topic for another time. Now, for your information, here in Canada, the record shows that for self-employed people, self-employed slave, the age of retirement is age 68. For federal government workers, or like they call themselves civil servants or public servants, the federal government employees, or for those who are fortunate or unfortunate, it depends on your point of view, to work for the federal government, the age of retirement is 61 and a half years. And for the private sector employees, they tend to work almost to age 65. If we make it to age 61, or let me be generous and say we make it to age 65, or better yet, we make it to age 68. I mean, we live to these ages. We survive the slavery to either of these ages. The age limits that the system here in North America say that, sorry, we are no more sufficiently productive to them, and thus we must, or that we may, or that we should be able to retire from service, aka retire from slavery. Retire from service, retire from slavery. I remember someone once pointed out to me that when I just got my my SIM card here in Canada, and someone proudly pointed out to me, "Oh yeah man, welcome, you just got your," I thought it was social insurance number. I said, "No man, it's your slave identification number. That's your SIN, SIN." Right? So if we make it to any of these the age limits that they said here in North America say that we are no more sufficiently productive, and thus we must get out of they call it the workforce, then the number which don't and won't lie, numbers don't and numbers won't lie, is telling us that for those of us that make it to age 61, we only have 9 years left to go, and 9 years is equal to 3,285 days. That's all we have left in our life's account. I was about to say life's bank account, but no, it's not bank there. It's our life's account. Life is not static. It is dynamic. Or more correctly, our life's account. Or another way of saying this, and again as numbers don't lie, is that 61 years of age, we would have 9 years, which is equal to 108 months, which is equal to 469.286 weeks, which is equal to 3,285 days, and 3,285 days is equal to 78,440 hours, and 78,840 hours is equal to what is that now? 4,730,400 minutes, and that is equal to 283,824 seconds remaining in our life's account. Again, the reason for these numbers is to remind you that every second in our lives count. Those of us that make it to age 65, so that was age 61. We have 9 years, and I break down that to seconds for you. Now, those of us who make it to age 65 would have 5 years. Remember, the goal is 70, 3 score and 10. Would have 5 years, and 5 years is equal to 59.9999 months, round that off at 60 months, 12,560, which is equal to 260.714 weeks, or if you round that off, 261 weeks, which is equal to 1,825 days, and 1,825 days is equal to 4,300, 43,800 hours. Sorry. Which is equal to 2,628 minutes. Which is equal to 1,057,680,000 seconds remaining in our life's account. All of these seconds count. Those of us who make it to age 68 would only have 2 years, which is equal to 24 months. And 24 months is equal to 104.286 weeks. And that is equal to 730 days. 730 days, according to the calculation, is equal to 17,520 hours. And that is equal to 10 million. 51,200 minutes. And that is equal to 630 million and 72,000 seconds remaining in our life's account. And since I'm speaking to you, I'm checking the clock. At least 50 minutes gone out of it already. 50 point something minutes. It's not static, it's ticking. So, whenever you hear anybody saying or giving you the pep talk that age is just a number and that age doesn't matter, then you must know this fact, that they are either nuts, or they are self-deluded, or they are plain out lying to themselves. Truth be told, you are a dying fool. Activated common sense alone should tell us that number matters, or that numbers matter. Therefore, age must matter as well. The unexamined life is not worth living. We must, or we should be examining our lives to see if we are wasting or if we are going to waste the little life or the little time that we have left. We must, or we should be examining our life to see if we are just causing ourselves undue stress, undue distress, undue mental and physical pain, and undue suffering, or if we could make lemonade out of the lemon that we may have, etc. We must examine our lives. Once we know this fact, we must examine our life. And again, why? It is because the evidence will show, and the evidence has shown, that the unexamined life is not worth living. So by examining my life, what are some of the things that I can identify to show and prove to myself and hopefully prove to others that my life is good and that my life is great? In other words, prove as a matter of fact that I am not just saying things to boost myself up, when deep down inside I know that the opposite is true. Number one is health. My health. And not just my health, but my good health, aka my holistic health, or if you prefer, my overall good health. And what am I talking about when I use the word health? I am talking about a complete physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness and well-being. I'm talking about a fair and reasonable balance between mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical bodies. My mental and emotional, my spiritual bodies. And the key word here is the word balance. From my perspective, my good health is my greatest wealth. What is meant by good health? And why do I say my health is my greatest wealth? Well, common sense alone should tell us that without good health, meaning without good mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical health, then life is not good, let alone great. Without a fair and reasonable balance between our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical bodies, these components that constitute our existence on this plane, then we cannot knowingly and honestly proclaim that our life is good, let alone that our life is great. And please note that I, the Mystic Philosopher, did not say that life is perfect, or that my life is perfect. Or nor did I say that health and good health, great health is the perfect balance between mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical bodies. But please note very carefully that I said that health, good health, great health is a fair and reasonable balance between mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical bodies. And why am I saying all this? Some of you may ask. It is because from my perspective and in reality, there is no such thing as perfection on this plane or on this realm of existence. The concept of perfection here is, from my perspective, an illusion. In fact, from my perspective, it is possible that there is no perfection other than that which we may conceive of in our minds. But that's a whole other topic and subject for debate or for reasoning. If perfection could be achieved, from my perspective, if perfection, or this thing that we call perfection, if it could be achieved or attained here on this plane and possible on any other planes of existence, then there would be nothing left for anyone or anything to strive for or to aspire to become. If perfection is achieved, what next? Nothing, in my opinion, from my perspective. For example, the idea that God is perfect might well be an attribute that we arbitrarily give to our God or to our gods. But that is another subject that is outside the realm of this discussion and presentation. So in this life, on this physical plane of existence, what I constantly strive for and constantly try to maintain is a fair, reasonable balance between my mental, my emotional, and my spiritual and my physical bodies. And the evidence will show, and the evidence has shown that if or when either of these components or either of these bodies is out of alignment or is diseased, then we have a problem, and a very serious problem at that. Meaning, life is not good. In other words, if we are not healthy mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, then we cannot honestly proclaim that life is good, let alone that life is great. Later on in this series of lectures, titled again The Art of Living Well, Another Perspective on Desiderata with the Mystic Philosopher, I will be looking at and identifying some of the things that affects our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health in much more detail. But for now, let us look at some of what I personally call the little things that are often overlooked by many, but are the things that really and truly make our lives not just good, but great. Number one is one's overall health. As mentioned before, from my perspective, health is wealth. Now, regrettably, the definition and perception of wealth, according to the world, according to the system, aka the government and its administrators, is, and I quote, an abundance of valuable possessions or the abundance of money, the state of being rich, material prosperity, plentiful supplies of resources or of a particular resource, worth, net worth, affluence, luxury, opulence, etc. Unquote. Now please note that nothing whatsoever is mentioned or even in the least implied of joy, happiness, peace, justice, fairness, love, humanity, respect, natural human intelligence, etc., etc. in the system's definition of wealth. Please note also that as it relates to the definition of the word wealth, nothing is mentioned about health, let alone wealth being a fair and reasonable balance between our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical bodies. These components that constitute our happiness and our existence on display. All emphasis are placed in and on owning and possession is placed on the owning and possession of material things. And to be even more accurate, all emphasis are placed on being possessed by material things. However, what the wicked don't know, understand, and overstand, and nor can they know, understand, or overstand, is that the spirit of what they possess also possessed them. But again, I spoke exhaustively on this fact elsewhere in another presentation, dealing with possession and being possessed. So according to the system, it and its cohorts and its administrators, you are either worth more, worthless, worth nothing, have no value at all, also known as black, black, the no class, the expendables, and the disposables, etc., etc. In other words, by worth, aka material possessions, is how we are classed and classified in the system that is all about classism. By worth, I mean that you are one of the aforementioned materially wealthy person or wealthy people. Those that sit and rule atop the pyramid, also known as the religio-political pyramid twin system. The super rich, the top 0.1 percenters, the top 1 percenters, the untouchables, the elite, the Illuminatis, the grossly unscrupulous ones, those without human souls, aka the soulless ones, the humankind, also known as a kind of human, the oppressors and slave masters, among many other names and titles that are used and can be used to describe them. By worth, I mean those that fall below the aforementioned elites in the hierarchy of the pyramid twin system, and by virtue servants and of their masters above them. They are also known as the ultra rich, among many other names and titles that are used to describe them. And by virtue, they are servants of all those that are above them. By worthless, I mean those that call themselves the middle class, the worth for less, or the worth far less than all the aforementioned. Worthful, the worthful ones. But in reality, and as it pertains to the hierarchy of things in the religio-political pyramid twin system, they are not really middle class. But that is also beside the point for now. By worth nothing, I mean those that have nothing. Materially I'm talking about. But are not quite disposable, because they have some value to the system and its hierarchy. At the very best, they may be seen as consumers by the elites. By no value at all, I mean those that are considered to be so poor and ignoble that we are seen, labeled, listed, and treated by the system as black. The blacks, the black ones, the black ones, the no class, the expendables and the disposables, etc. However, For those of us that are the natural native earthly humans, the earth's organic humans that are awakened and enlightened to the devil's deceptions and from their system's hypnotic trance, those of us who now know, understand, understand and overstand that the unexamined life is not worth living, those of us that are examining our life now, that are examining our life, know, understand, understand and overstand that health is our true wealth. We know, understand, understand and overstand that without health there is no true wealth. We know, understand, understand and overstand that without health our life is not good. Without health our life is miserable. Without health our life is a living hell. And so the moment that we realize that we have health, or at the very least reasonably good health, we celebrate, and we must celebrate, because we know that life for us is good and that life for us is great. In fact, according to the man, the character in the Adamic race history and holy book, aka the Christian Holy Bible, called Jesus Christ, also known as Yahushua the Messiah, commonly called these names, is alleged to have said, and I quote, "And he said unto them, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of things which he possessed or possesseth." Unquote. That is from the book called Luke 12 and verse 50, the King James Version. Or to quote from the New International Version, from the same Adamic race history and holy book, and I quote, "Then he said to them, Watch out!" Exclamation sign. Watch out! Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Unquote. And thus, from my perspective, all those of us, especially my highly enriched melanin people, my African people, and all those among us who are deceived and are being deceived by the system and its administrators, and especially the evil system, so-called prosperity gospel, so-called prosperity ministers, and its so-called prosperity pastors, bishops, preachers and evangelists, you name them, into thinking and believing that in order for them to have a good life, that in order for them to live good, who believe that in order for life to be great, that in order for them to have a meaningful life, that in order for them to have a fulfilled life, that in order for them to have a fruitful and accomplished life, that in order for them to have a life, have and live a life of joy, peace and happiness, a life of abundance, etc., that he, she or they must possess the abundance of material wealth, that he, she or they must be materially rich, that he, she or they must possess the abundance of money and power, that he, she or they must show prosperity, that he, she or they must be so-called financially independent, that he, she or they must own stuff, that he, she or they must have the gold and be making the rules, etc. From I, the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, such an individual, or those individuals, have believed a lie and is believing a lie. Those souls have believed a lie and are believing a lie. Such an individual is a victim of Satan and his ministers' deception or deceptions. Such souls are victims of Satan and his ministers' deceptions. Such an individual is lost. Those souls are lost, and possible they are so far gone that they cannot be saved or rescued. And if you are one of those materially possessed souls that are listening to me right now, I must hereby regretfully inform you that you are lost, and from the true meaning of life you are being tragically denied. And that is why we have experienced and are experiencing so much greed, so much envy, so much covetousness, so much bad-mindedness, as we would say in Jamaica, so much jealousy and unhappiness among our melanin people today. And the evidence has shown, and the evidence will no doubt continue to show, that as long as there is greed, envy, covetousness, and jealousy in our hearts or in our minds, we cannot be happy. In other words, greedy people are not happy, and nor can they be happy. Envious people are not happy, and nor can they be happy. Covetous people are not happy, and nor can they be happy. Jealous people are not happy, and nor can they be happy. And this is what the sages, the elders, the wise men and women of old, our ancestors and those who took time out and wrote scriptures and leave for our learning and admonition, is telling us that we should not covet. Covet, by meaning and definition, is to yearn to possess or to yearn to have something, especially something that is not ours. And I quote, "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. You shall not, or his male or female servant, his ox or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor." Unquote. Please let me take a little time here and break this down for you. And especially for some of you Christians and so-called commandment keepers. Let me illuminate this for you and see if it find any of you or even myself guilty. Bearing in mind that the truth is like a two-edged sword, meaning it is not partial, it cuts two ways or both ways. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, unquote. In other words, we shall not and we should not be looking upon or admiring, wishing for, lusting after, or yearning to possess, have, or to have our neighbor's house, or one like it, or one bigger than it, etc. No, you should not, and we should not be doing those things. And if or when we should ever find ourselves consciously or unconsciously doing so, then it means that we are being covetous and manifesting symptoms of covetousness, and that we are possessing and are being possessed by the very cancerous and dangerous seed of covetousness. And as such, we cannot be happy, and nor will we know, let alone experience true happiness. Because the simple fact is that covetous people are not happy people. Covetous people cannot be happy. In fact, if you know anyone, including yourself, that is miserable, some people that are just angry all the time, some people that just snap at you for little or no reason whatsoever, some people that are unapproachable, you name it, I can almost guarantee you that if you ever get to know them well enough, you will discover that the root cause for their behavior, their bitterness, and their unhappiness is because they are covetous. We will have to root it out and kill it and destroy it. And just for your information, your neighbor or your neighbor is not just the person or the people that live next door to us. Our neighbor is not just the person or the people that live next door to us, or adjacent to us, or nearest to us, or those that are adjoining us. But our neighbor, as it pertains to covetousness, is everyone that we come in contact with. or with whom we share the planet. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. Unquote. In other words, we should not be looking upon, admiring, wishing for, or lusting after, and yearning to possess, or to have our neighbor's wife, or our neighbor's husband, or our neighbor's man, or our neighbor's woman, or our neighbor's partner, or to have one like her, or him, or one better than her, or him, etc. No, you shall not, and you should not be doing those things. For example, church sisters should not be looking upon the pastor, bishop, the preacher, the deacon, or your church sister's husband, and be lusting for, wishing for, praying for, or wanting to have one just like him, or like them. In fact, according to the said Adamic race history and holy book, Jesus is alleged to have said, and I quote, "But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her, had committed adultery with her already in his heart," unquote. Matthew 5:28. Can you imagine a church sister praying to God every night, or every day and every night? "My God, I beg you, please give me a husband just like pastor, or one just like bishop, just like evangelist, just like deacon, just like brother John, etc." What this sister don't know is that the seed of covetousness is being activated in her mind, and her pastor won't tell her. Her pastor won't tell her that she's walking on and praying on dangerous territory. Why? Because he, the pastor, want to project himself as the perfect man of God, that all his male congregants should want to be like, and the perfect man of God that every woman in his congregation should admire and desire. He is the perfect model. If you want to know if a pastor has ego, just look at how they dress, how they speak, how they roll, and how they carry themselves. Another very important point that I would be remiss if I did not mention here is the fact that as African people, aka melanin people, the Earth's organic humans, as a race of people, we should not be looking at other people's women or men. In other words, we should not be looking upon or admiring, wishing for, lusting after, and yearning to possess, have, or to have our neighbors' men or women. Melanin men, aka African men, should not be looking at other people's women or men. In other words, we should not be looking upon, admiring, wishing for, lusting after, and yearning to possess, to have and to hold our Caucasian, Arabian, Asian, and all other of our neighbors' women. You should not be looking upon, admiring, or wishing, or lusting after, and yearning to possess, to have and to hold our Caucasian, Arabian, Asian, and all other of our neighbors' men. Women, you shouldn't do that. Men, you shouldn't do that. They are our neighbors. I shouldn't lust after them. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servant. For example, your neighbor's employees, his ox or his donkey. For example, his motor cars, his motor vehicles, and his mode of transportation. You shouldn't envy or covet and desire his businesses, etc., or anything that belongs to your neighbor. No, you should not. You shall not, and you should not be doing these things. And if or when we should find ourselves consciously or unconsciously doing them, it means that we are being covetous and are manifesting symptoms of covetousness, and that we are possessing and are being possessed by the very cancerous and dangerous seed of covetousness. And as such, we cannot be happy, and nor will we know true happiness. Because the simple fact is that covetous people are not happy people. Covetous people cannot be happy people. We will have to root it out and kill it. We'll have to destroy it. And for those of us that watch and listen to my first lecture in this series titled The Art of Living Well, Another Perspective on Desiderata Part 1 and Part 1A by the Mystic Philosopher. You will remember me quoting from the book titled The Miniature Guide to the Human Mind, How It Learns and How It Mislearns, by Dr. Linda Elder and Dr. Richard Paul. And you will also no doubt remember me expounding on the verse or the statement that said, and I quote, "To live well is to live as a reasonable and ethical person," unquote. And how I went on to show and prove that an unreasonable and unethical human or person, regardless of his or her status in life, is not living well, and nor can they. And that regardless of a person's status in life or in society or in the world, as long as he or she or they are unreasonable and unethical, they are not living well. In fact, if I might add, the evidence will show, and the evidence has shown, that at the root of all wars, at the root of all abominable acts of genocides and all the atrocities, you name it, or you name them, that have been committed and that are being committed against us humans, are the sins, the germs, the viruses called greed, covetousness, jealousy, selflessness, and envy, which are just some of the fruits and the manifestations of an unreasonable and an unethical mind, and some unreasonable and some unethical minds. And in lecture 1A of the said series, you will also remember me quoting from one of my own songs, and I quote, "Don't envy the rich." Song title, "Don't Envy the Rich." And I quote, "Don't envy the rich or the famous, my youth, cause it's not all that glitters is gold. Some may have religious, political, celebrity powers and fame, but their hearts are evil. Some are perverts, ruthless, rotten, restless souls. Some are hypocrites that are pretending that they are doing good and well, but the real truth, their life is a living hell. Some can't even sleep at nights. No. Let me tell you, worldly fame and success is not true happiness, my youths. You must first free your minds from all worldly attachments and course. Life is all about happiness. It is all about your happiness. And as the Truthix in another of my songs clearly states, and I quote, "Life is good, life is great. It is a gift from the source that we must all appreciate much more now. Please don't take it for granted before you know it could be gone, even though each moment an infant baby child is born. Strive always to be happy and treat each other good. Oh yeah, sing happy songs and be grateful for all the good things that are yours. Oh yeah, now life is good, life is great. Life is a gift from the source that we must all learn to appreciate much more now. Because when you wake up in the morning and you are in good health, and if you live in a land that is free, where there is hope and possibility, now if you use your health and gain material wealth, remember to give back to the source by helping and serving those that are in need. Life is good. Life is great. It is a gift from the source that we must all learn to appreciate much more now. To all you, my young people, please listen very carefully to my song, and let me tell you that there is no profit in you doing wrong. Oh no. You must respect each other, and don't be like the losers, the scumbags, the thugs and the gangsters that are enslaving and abusing our women, pimping, raping and murdering little children. I say you must respect each other, and don't become like the losers, the traitors, betrayers and warmongers, bringing disgrace on our race and our culture, humiliating our sisters, mothers. Cause to change your lives, you must first change your thoughts. For whatever you think, say or do, the universe will multiply it back to you. Oh yeah now. Cause life is good, life is great, life is a gift from the source that we must all learn to appreciate much more now. Now this is the end of part 2A of this my series of presentation titled The Art of Living Well, another perspective and interpretation of Desiderata. And I thank you for listening thus far and for your patience and for your time. If you follow me this far, which has been deducted from your life. And I ask that you please join me in part 3 for the continuation and much more detailed expressions on this topic, the art of living well, another perspective and interpretation of Desiderata. I am the Mystic Philosopher. It's high time for reason and for reasoning. Ashe, 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 I say.